Apex Online Racing is sponsored by Elgato, who created this lovely Stream Deck. For more information about the Stream Deck, the link is in the description below.
Hello and welcome to round 2 of the AOR F2 PC Championship. I'm here today with Aladar commentating over this Bahrain Grand Prix. As we're out in the desert where it's looking like it's going to be a very hot and dry race with, as I call it, the no rain race. And this is a circuit that cost over $150 million for all the tourists that come to the area in the desert, where there's not really that much else around to do outside of a zoo. And one of the main things this track is known for is its several long straights followed by its winding sections in the end of Sector 1 into Sector 2, where you got the downhill hairpin. That is a very tricky corner. As we look around the 5.4 kilometer track, as it's mostly flat, where we got three DRS zones, excuse me, and with a slight elevation change and through the 15 corners, we see a lot of overtaking opportunities for the drivers today. As we've seen in years past, the front straight is one of the main ones where we have a very long DRS straight, the longest one on the track, and immediately after it, after the hairpin, it winds right up into the second DRS straight, which, though not that long, still provides plenty of action as seen on screen. And so the tires today we're looking at, we have the soft, medium, and hard tire, where the medium tire is actually over a second a lap slower than the softs, while the hards are 5/10 off of that pace as well. But the soft tires will degrade really quickly in the race, so it'll be very interesting to see how drivers utilize the undercut today. All right, Aladar, I will let you take over now.
All right, yeah, very good intro. Thank you very much for that one. And welcome everyone, as was mentioned, to Bahrain, the Sakir International Circuit. As qualifying has just about got underway, every single car in the field is currently on an outlap. No one in the pit, so no one starting their flying lap quite yet, which will probably lead to some congestion around the circuit. 15 drivers here today, and every single one of them, interestingly enough, on the soft tires. Now, slightly surprised to see no one electing to try and qualify on the mediums, but evidently people deciding that the outright pace of the soft tire is what they need to go for here today, at least at the very beginning of this qualifying session. Josh F1 was leading the pack around the first guy out on track, and he will be the first guy pushing on his hot lap. So why don't we take a look and see what the German is doing in the McLaren, already getting to the end of Sector 1, using all the road into Turn 4, as you can see, widening the angle for that one nicely, which also widens up even further on the exit as well. Purple in Sector 1, but of course he is, because no one else has set a Sector 1 time yet. Down into Turn 8 he goes, getting it locked up a little bit and running just a little bit wide through Turn 8. He won't be too happy with how that one went. Turn 9, Turn 10, the toughest part of the circuit by an absolute country mile, and Josh did not get it right there. It wasn't terrible, but that definitely wasn't the fastest way around there either. Now, using once again a lot of the road, braking just before the 50-meter board into Turn 11. This is a corner which requires a lot of bravery on the throttle, as the car can snap away from you if you're not careful, but Josh holds onto it nicely. Now, Turn 13, 14, all looking okay as he heads towards the final corner, which is actually turns 14 and 15 here. Once again, braking about 75 meters. Big lock up on the front right tire there. And that would have cost him just about a tenth, maybe half a tenth through the final corner and up towards the line. It's a 1:25.3, which actually a pretty solid time. However, Sirpos goes and blows that out the water with a 1:25 flat.
Yeah, that's a pretty good time by Sipos there. But if what I know is correct, and I think some of these drivers are going to need to get into the 24s. I'm thinking about a 24-7, 24-8 will probably win pole for us today.
Yeah, well, 24/7 at least, I would say, because we'll probably see some track improvement. We tend to see that around here in Bahrain. Towards the end of the session, the track should get a little bit faster for these guys, and they'll get their eyes in as well, and just get that a little bit more on the ball. Several drivers all coming through in the 125 mark. What's happened there?
Yorpa's just lost the rear end at the end of Sector 2. I think he touched the inside curb there, which we all know is very slippery, and it looks like he just lost it there, which is really going to ruin those tires, so he's probably going to come in and change them, put on a new set, softs.
Yeah, absolute classic thing to happen there to poor Horpa. Horpa we saw last race with race-winning pace last time out, but not race-winning consistency, and not a race-winning ability to keep the car out of the wall, because he ended up DNFing from that one on his second trip into the wall. But nevertheless, a very, very fast driver is the Spaniard, and I'm excited to see what he can do here today, but he's not off on the right foot, and nor is Pablo Futej, interestingly enough, who's also come straight back into the pits on from his first initial attempt without setting a lap time, and he's back out there now, just starting his second outlap of the day in the Red Bull. He is, of course, our championship leader, having won last time out in Australia. And however, he might not be quite so on the ball today. Why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, so I learned late this week that he was doing a 24-hour race this weekend. That is what he spent a lot of time yesterday doing, the LMP2 cars. So, yeah, the cars are quick, but, you know, it obviously will feel differently, that's for sure. And so the fact that he's probably exhausted from that race, that it might hurt him later on in the race when it comes to overall consistency, but let's see what he's got for us today in qualifying.
Yeah, and it also might mean that he wasn't able to put quite as much practice into Bahrain on the F1 2020 game as he might usually have done if he had other commitments throughout the week and on the weekend as well. So yeah, interesting to see whether Pablo Futej can keep up the sort of pace we saw from him in the opening round. Sipos, despite being the third car across the line, is still up there on provisional pole. No one was able to better the Renault driver, who definitely didn't have a great time of it last time out, qualified somewhere deep down towards the bottom of the order and ended up DNFing, if I remember correctly. So yeah, currently sitting in 14th place in the championship, which does indeed mean he DNF'd last race, but definitely showed a couple of flashes of pace very briefly in the race while he still had the opportunity. And now, being on provisional pole, that's definitely more than just a flash, as he is up there in P1. Kryzik's, interestingly enough, in P2 as well. The Shazoo driver also didn't manage to score last time out, finishing down in P12. So a couple of unexpected names perhaps towards the top of the order at the beginning of this qualifying session.
That is for sure. I know with Sipos, last race he showed pace in qualifying that he could have been towards the front, but he just kept invalidating his laps, and as a result it put him at the back of the grid as Pablo Futej goes purple in Sector 1. So it's looking like that exhaustion that I was talking about definitely isn't coming to play right now, because he's looking like he wants to fight for the win today with the kind of pace he's showing over one lap. Now, as if that carries into the race, we'll see, but he is a known good driver. We saw what he did in Australia, so I wouldn't be surprised to see him do it again today.
Got some traffic up ahead, though. Hopefully that won't take his eye off the ball too much on this qualifying lap. Looking very smooth, using all the road on the exit of turn 11 as well. That looked pretty much perfect. That's Horpa, his erstwhile rival for the race lead out in Australia last time. However, Pablo Futej not making the apex of turn 13 there. That will have cost him a couple of tenths of a second, I would expect. Not even bothering to get his car back on the road before braking, using all of the track into the entry of turns 14 and 15. All smooth, used quite a lot of curb on the apex though, and actually, as a result of that rather messy final sector, Pablo Futej down in P9 after his first flying lap, which can be registered.
Yeah, he definitely started out that lap strong, but it looks like a couple spots, either dirty air or just missing braking zones, kind of cost him there from having a top 5 kind of lap. But we'll see again, like if he can hit those apexes, if he can get down into the low 25s and maybe into the 24s. But at the same time, I'm surprised his teammate didn't back off to give him slipstream or take advantage of the fact that Pablo Futej was finishing a flying lap and could have given him free toe down the front straight. So interesting to see the Red Bull drivers weren't trying to work together there, but that's okay because it is early in the season, and I'm sure these drivers just focus on actually getting down a lap, since it is tricky to nail it around here, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's the thing with league racing in general, really, is that sometimes you and your teammate, you get together, you work together, you practice together, you learn the way each other drive, and you start to help each other out on track, especially in qualifying, where slipstreaming is obviously the best way to do that. But sometimes you just don't, you know? Sometimes you're just out there for yourself, you're not out there for your team, and you really just mainly care about the Drivers' Championship. And maybe that's what we're seeing from the Red Bull boys, as Horpa has gone purple in Sector 2. A couple of people going across the line. That would be Hmiel up to first position, but only by 0.02 of a second, stealing it away from Sipos for the time being. Yeltek up into P3 as well. Sipos comes across the line, re-establishes himself at the top with a 1:24.988. Horpa coming close, but not quite close enough there in P4. Grand Mimi displaces him down to P5 in the Haas. That's Rainbow coming up towards the line now, but has invalidated their lap time, therefore coming into the pits. A Haas coming up towards the line. That would be Zoran just completing his outlap, so he's about to start pushing. And Creo, is that coming into the line? No, who was that coming up towards the line? Jackal Jack also starting an outlap, I think.
Yes, he is starting an outlap, and Soltzi's invalidated his lap. It looked like it would have been a pretty good lap, but he backed off in the last straight and is now entering the pit. So that's unfortunate to see, but he might be another driver that might be able to put down a lap that compete for that pole position.
Christian Sendel in the final sector, about to go around the very last corner of the lap in the Williams. He's about 1.5 tenths up on his previous best time, which will slot him into around P8 for the time being, depending on how much he can improve in the final sector, which is another 1/10. And that will put him P7, just ahead of Schultes. Kilachu also puts himself ahead of Schultes, dropping the Polish driver down to P9. And Schultes, after the opening exchanges, was actually in P3 after the very first laps had come through from everyone. But invalidating on his second run means that he has now not had the opportunity to respond to a field which is increasing its pace rapidly here.
Oh yeah, it's definitely increasing its pace rapidly. And unlike Australia last week, the gap from first down the order is a lot closer than what we saw last week. So this is going to be a very competitive race, I think. And I don't think we're going to have that separation that we had last week between the top couple guys and everyone else. I think the whole field's going to be a lot closer. And with these DRS rates and everything, we might get some DRS trains.
Zoran heading back into the pits in the Haas as well. Not sure if he invalidated or what exactly went on. Jackal Jack going up into P12. In the Ferrari first representative lap time of the session for him. Important to get a banker lap in. A 1:25.5 is only, about 0.6 away from the pole time. So not a bad lap time at all, but only good enough for P12 at the moment. The only driver really anywhere off the back of the field is Rainbow for the time being. And even then, it's not by much. Still only 0.7 of a second separating the entire field here in Bahrain, which is something you absolutely love to see. Can Rainbow now improve in the Mercedes? I mean, you only need to find, maybe 2 or 3 tenths, and you're going well up the order. So it shouldn't be too tall of an ask for the Lithuanian. Let's see if they can do it, as they're just winding up on their outlap at the moment.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they can do. I'm also curious to see if any drivers might try, if someone like Rainbow, who knows that he's got natural pace, that they might go, maybe I'll just try to get 11, see if I can run an alternative strategy. Because from what I've heard, the mediums do not last if you go soft to medium, but if you start on a fresh set and you're really nice with the tires, and hey, if you get a safety car as well, you could kind of run a reverse strategy, mediums or even the hards, and then run the softs late, and they'll be miles faster than anyone else will be on the track at all. So I'll be curious to see if anyone thinks that, if I'm not going to crack the top 10, maybe I'll try to position myself for the reverse strategy.
Of course, it's so hard to do, though, to try and nail getting P11, especially when the field is so close. It's really difficult to get the exact right time you need, and especially when it's a moving set of goalposts as well. Everyone improving around you, or some people not improving that you might expect to improve. There's so many variables that come into play, so if someone can pull that off, more power to them, because that's an incredible thing to be able to do. Padlo Fuktej is out there pushing at the moment, already about half a second up on his best lap time. Purple through Sector 2 as well, our championship leader, currently sitting down in P13 in the Red Bull after a lackluster opening lap in this qualifying session, but pushing a lot harder now and going a lot faster. Nita through the final sector than last lap as well, and up into P2 with an identical time to his teammate Hmiel.
And here comes Kryzik, who's purple in the middle sector. He's coming down the back straight, not the back straight, the second to last straight and into the last corner. He might be able to challenge for that top spot as well. See how he comes out of the last corner, too.
Yeah, Rainbow only up into P12 in the Mercedes. That will be a disappointment for the Lithuanian. Kryzix up to the very top with a 1:24.876. That's a whole tenth of a second faster than Sipos, and in such a congested field, that's definitely something to be considered. 1/10 of a second means more here than it would at most circuits when everyone is so close.
Oh yeah, it is for sure. I mean, that is just huge. He's around on where I was talking about with that target time, the 24.7, 24.8. I think he's going to get a little bit of trouble for holding that spot, but he's looking, I think, in great shape to be a top 6 at the start of this race, at the very least.
Yeah, Horpa pushing as well, over a tenth of a second up on his best time in the opening sector of the lap. The Spaniard in the Alfa Romeo, seeming to be a very fast but perhaps somewhat erratic driver so far this season, but this is looking pretty neat and tidy. Not quite right through turn 10, but definitely not costing himself more than about a tenth of a second at most there. A little bit of an early turn in for turn 11 will force him wide onto the curbing. That can mean that you struggle to get the power down quite when you want to. Have to take a tighter line that will scrub with a little bit more speed through turn 12. Doesn't manage to make the apex of turn 13 either. Runs wide on the exit, and that's an invalidation for Horpa, who after the first sector of the lap it was looking so good for, is not even going to bother with the final corner before heading back into the pits with only 2 minutes and 45 seconds left in the session. He needs to get back in as quick as he possibly can so that he can make sure he gets one more shot.
I think he's got barely enough time as long as he doesn't get held up by anyone. His teammate's out on track already, so he won't have to worry about that, because I know there's been plenty of instances where drivers gotten held up by their teammates coming to the pits. But one thing I wanted to note on Padlo Futez's fast lap, he was almost out of ERS, and with how some of these drivers are just getting out now, they might burn a little bit on their out lap to make sure they get there in time, which could cost them, because with how much of a power track this tends to be on these straights, they really were burning through ERS, a lot of the drivers. And so Padlo Futez finished the lap with 12% ERS. You know, if another driver does something similar, they might run out of ERS, and it might cost them a position or two.
Yeah, definitely something they're going to have to watch out for. Something that Sipos, who's out there on his final flying lap of the session now, will have to watch out for is traffic. Because he went out earlier than everyone else, he's got a fair few cars ahead of him on the road that he might need to watch out for. Christian Sendel getting well out of the way as Sipos makes his way towards the end of Sector 1 into the S section now, ever so slightly up on his previous best time. That won't be enough as things stand to displace Kryzix at the top and regain the throne, and a lock-up into turn 8 won't help Sipos either, running deep there and losing a fair amount of time into turns 9 and 10. That was nice, just a little bit of a clunk over the inside curb will have unsettled the car a little bit and meant that Sipos is going to have a little bit of a tougher time getting the power laid down into turn 11, and once again not quite making the apex there either, just a little bit of understeer mid-corner, causing the Renault to run a little bit wide. Nice through turn 12 until he gets to the exit, where he invalidates on what ought to be a flat-out section of the track. That's nothing but greed for the angle into turn 13, and Sipos has no one but himself to blame for that one. He will have to keep pushing and just go again straight away.
Hopefully he has enough fuel to go again straight away, which he does not.
No.
That's going to be a session.
That's frustrating for the Hungarian, because he really did look like he was in with a shout of pole position here. Was on provisional pole for quite a while, but now Kryzix has taken it away. And can Padlo Futej, Hmiel, Yeltek do anything to challenge as well?
Interesting to see as they all start their lap. I'm on board with Creo right now, who's currently the first driver in the queue, followed by, I believe, Soltzes. So we'll see if he's able to do anything. He's a little over a tenth up on his best, but his best won't really put him right now in the top 10. See if he can finish this lap and possibly knock off a couple more tenths in the last corners. It's going to be very hard. There's a nice little lockup on the apex. It's going to definitely cost his exit speed as he comes across the line. What will it be? 25.2, not bad. He was able to get a lot of time there, a lot more than I thought he would have.
Yeah, into P9 goes the Alfa Romeo, but I'd expect to see him falling down the order. Can Schultes be one to put him down? No, because it's yet another invalidation for the Polish driver in the AlphaTauri, who started this qualifying session so strongly, but it's all gone wrong for Rafał Schultes there, who will just retire from the session. No more that he can do to try and improve. Jackal Jack's improving, 2 tenths up on his previous best time, but at the moment, that's only on track to maybe move him up one slot to P14. He needs to nail this final sector here as he comes up towards the line. in the Ferrari. What's it going to be? It's only good enough for 15th, just 7 thousandths away from Zoran as Kilachu ahead of Sipos and up into second with an identical time to Kryzix. Where did that come from? The Frenchman in the Racing Point really staking a claim there. Christian Sendel, no better than P10. Pablo Futej is invalidated. He's not going to improve from P4. Our championship leader will be starting 4th at best. Grand Mimi won't be going any higher than 9th. The Zoran in the other Haas goes all the way up into P4. Kime pushing on the back straight. Josh F1 will fancy a chance as well as he comes up towards the line. And it's pole for Josh F1. Unless Kime now with the Red Bull can do anything to stop him. Horpa out there pushing as well. Horpa up towards the line and it's pole for him. The Spaniard takes it away. And what is it going to be for Kime? It's only P5 for the Romanian in the Red Bull. So Horpa, after seeming like he was having a tough qualifying session in general, pulls it out of the bag with a 1:24.791 in the dying moments.
Wow, that was a very exciting end there, even more exciting than last week. So many drivers putting up times at the end, with Kilachu getting so unlucky in the fact that he put that 24.876 after Kryzix, which is going to cost him the position. But either way, so many drivers invalidated that last lap. So it's very unfortunate to see today.
Yeah, I will never know what the likes of Pablo Futej and Schultes could have done with their invalidations. Yeltek didn't improve as well. I'm not sure if he invalidated, but the Dutchman will be starting no higher than P9. Not starting outside of the top 10, so won't be able to run the contra strategy like he did to such great effect last time out, where he managed to end the race in 5th position. But yeah, so very, very interesting. A different look to the front of the grid, apart from Horpa, of course, being up there once again in the Alfa Romeo, with the walls a little bit further away here than they are in Australia. Horta might be feeling a little bit more confident, although he needs to watch out for that curbing through turn 12, as we saw catching him out at least once in qualifying.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the drivers do. It's currently on screen. All of our viewers can see we're playing a little Ferrari F2010, I believe, driving around the Bahrain short circuit right now. As you can see, as it's currently using all of the track and admiring the, I guess, it's kind of like a dust kind of setting in the screen. But as we prepare for the race to start and the drivers to get all ready and their setups ready to go with their strategies, so that way they can start the race.
If anyone's out there in chat, why don't you let us know who you reckon is going to be able to take the win in this one, as we see, looking at the tires that everyone's running on. Are we still watching the F2003, or are we...
We have switched it back, as the lap was rather quick considering. So.
All right, okay, so now we can look at the tires that everyone is running. That's a predicted pit stop strategy, of course, predicting 2 stops across the board. I'm not so certain about that one. But yeah, Rainbow, Christian Sendel, Schultes, and Jackal Jack all going on to the hard tires for the start of this race, as Rainbow disqualifies himself from the session. That only matters for the formation lap, of course, not for the race itself. Creo, meanwhile, in P13, electing to go for the mediums rather than the hards, and the only one with free tire choice to do so.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if he pulls the strategy that I was talking about before, trying to stretch those mediums, which, as I mentioned before qualifying, the mediums aren't that much faster than the hards, and with their higher wear, it'll be interesting to see what he can do. I think he'll definitely get a good jump off the line, especially with Rainbow not now having cold tires to start the race on. I think he might be able to get a couple positions, but I think he's going to need a hope for like a safety car or VSC or something really to give him more time to just drive easy on those tires to just save him, so he can actually use those softs to their full extent at the end of the race without them falling off the cliff too badly.
Yeah, so Josh Kryzix and Kilachu starting from 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. None of those drivers scoring last time out, and none of them really troubling the top end of the points table much. Josh, I think, had an incident during the first lap last time, so hopefully he'll keep it a little bit cleaner this time around. And Kime, of course, who didn't actually race last time out due to, I think, being simply too tired and considering himself a danger to the other drivers, starting in P5 as well. So everyone from 2nd to 6th, in fact, with Sipos has not scored a point yet. So there's a huge chance for these guys, and also a huge chance for Horpa, who of course hasn't scored a point either, as I completely forgot that he completely crashed out last time as well. I got so used to him having such good pace that I thought he must have scored, but of course he did not. So none of the top 6 have points in the championship so far. This is going to be a race which is going to turn the championship standings on their head as we are about to get underway here in Bahrain for round 2 of Apex Online Racing Season 20. Formula 2, the lights go out. They go out a bit earlier for Hmiel, who manages to slow down the Red Bull before getting too much of an advantage, and Horpa leads cleanly away. The 2 McLarens going nose to tail into turn 1. Josh will take the position, holding it from Kryzix. Kilachu trying to hold on as Sipos is challenging there, but Sipos losing out to Hmiel as well. Padlo Futej up into P7, getting past Zoran. Yeltek trying to make a move on Grand Mimi as well, but up at the front it's pretty much as we were. Yeltek getting up the outside of Grand Mimi, the inside of the other Haas of Zoran, who's fallen down the order just a little bit off the start, as now the 2 Haas's going side by side. Is that going to be Zoran winning out? Yes, it is.
That was some very nice driving. I don't think I saw any debris flying around. I was very impressed with how cleanly they got through turn 1, considering I saw a little bit of smoke from Hancox. But man, that was crazy. They were 3 wide on that straight after coming out of turn, what was that, turn 3. So I was wondering to see who would be the bravest on the brakes, and it looked like it was Yeltek that was able to come out on top of that battle with the Haas's.
Yeah, up 1 position from where he started. Padlo Futej up 1 as well. Zoran losing out 2 positions off the start line. But everyone ahead of Padlo Futej, from Horpa to Sipos, all didn't change position, so a remarkably clean start for all of these drivers here. And to be honest, very, very tame stuff up at the front. We saw Sipos trying to challenge Hmiel, but Hmiel was able to get it back. Kilachu also caught up in that battle just a little bit at the beginning, but was able to clear the Red Bull and the Renault behind, as Horpa, of course, in the fastest lap of the race. I'm seeing Josh going flying down the order, but I don't think that's actually the truth, as he is currently still sitting in P2. Horpa actually locking up pretty heavily into turn 1, getting the braking zone all wrong, as it looks like Sipos and Hmiel are battling as well. The Renault, oh no, trying to push the Red Bull wide, giving no space through turn 2, and as a result the cars get glued together and Hmiel goes flying off the road with front wing damage to boot. I think Sipos's car is okay, but he's lost a couple of positions though.
Yeah, looking like I'm getting a little bit of desync in the lobby because it shows Jackal Jack in first, which is just not the case. Actually, it shows Hmiel in first. It's like it's running a reverse order right now for me. So I do apologize to everyone watching. I think it just fixed itself now that I pulled up the Hmiel. That was very unfortunate. I caught that in the background. I saw him losing the rear end and hitting the wall. That is, what, did he hit the wall or did he save it out of it? Because I saw him like sort of sideways on my screen, but I was a little bit of a desynced.
I don't think Hmiel actually hit the wall. I'm not sure, actually, but he didn't take any damage from the wall. He did take damage just from the contact with the Renault of Sipos, who got caught up in that incident with Hmiel, and I think that one might be going to the stewards. I didn't really see well enough at the time to apportion blame either way, but that was definitely an incident that this race could have done without. Zoran now is up into P7, back where he started, of course, because everyone has inherited those positions from Hmiel and Sipos, who have gone tumbling down the order. Sipos managing to go no further down than P9 though, so the race isn't lost for the Hungarian, but Hmiel in the Red Bull will be feeling a significant amount worse. Horpa was able to recover from that lockup into turn 1 last time, as it looks like the Haas's are going side by side into the first corner now. Zoran holding the position for now. Will Gromimi get the better exit through turn 3 and up towards turn 4? DRS will help the French driver to try and get up the inside of the Hungarian. Zoran not really fighting it here as Gromimi goes really deep. Zoran has to get off of it to try and avoid his teammate up ahead, and now Sipos is able to take advantage of that. Zoran losing out 2 positions once again, back down to P9.
As Hmiel is retired from the race, we're now down to 14 drivers. Hopefully we can finish with more drivers in the actual F1 race today, but we still have 27 laps to go, so it'll be interesting to see if these drivers can keep it on track, which, as we saw last race, they keep keeping it clean. As Sipos is looking like he can make a move on the inside of Grand Mimi. Is he going to make it stick? It's looking like he has. That is P7 for the Renault as the Haas driver is trying to come back at him, but he's not going to make much work around the outside of that corner.
Yeah, Sipos just about getting enough traction to be able to fend off Gromamy's attempt at a switchback move there. Sipos getting the position done nicely and going about making amends for that incident in the end of the first lap, the beginning of the second lap with Hmiel that saw Sipos dropping down from P5 to P9, but now back up into P7, showing some real pace in that Renault, and similarly, Kilachu showing some pace, getting past Kryzix before they even get to the braking zone. They're just drafting past the McLaren. Jack losing a position to Schultes as well, who goes up into P11 further down the order. So changes throughout the field for the time being. Gromamy pretty close behind Sipos, but not close enough to think about making a move into turn 4 this time around.
Yeah, one thing I'm watching right now very closely is the pace of the Haas drivers, because the Williams driver, Christian Sendel, is the first one on that alternate strategy, and he's just out of DRS range. As he goes in it just now, if he can stay in DRS range and kind of pull along all those hard drivers with him, it's going to really mess with some of these drivers who are on the main strategy today when it comes later on in the race, because the hard tires, they will drive for a while, and when these drivers pit for the new set of hards, they're not going to be too much faster than those guys on those older sets of hards. And like I said, at the end of the race, the softs are just going to fly. So it's going to be really nice to see as Creo and Jackal Jack are having a little battle. As it looks like, did Creo just get through on Jackal Jack?
Yeah, Creo making the move. Jackal Jack losing 2 positions so far this lap, and with Rainbow all over his case as well. The Ferrari driver definitely under pressure here on lap 4 of the Bahrain Grand Prix. Creo, though, starting on those medium tires, doesn't need to be mired down here with the hard runners. Needed to be able to get a better run off the line to be able to stretch his legs in that Alfa Romeo on those medium tires. But right now, beating the drum to the rhythm of the hard tire runners as Horpa into turn 1, once again going deep, but holding on to the position. Josh not able to do anything about it quite yet behind Kilachu, Kryzix, Padlo Futesh, the order remaining the same this time around. No one making a move quite into turn 1 as Jackal Jack also holds on to P13, and no one close enough to think about it into turn 4 either.
Yeah, it's looking like right now their drivers holding pace, you know, getting a little bit of a DRS train going, especially towards the front as Padlo Flutes is off the track. Did he have a spin? He had a moment. He's missing his front wing completely. Oh, it is tears for our current championship leader who had such a good race in round 1. As there's a VSC.
Virtual safety car. Yeah, virtual safety car coming out here for Padlo Futesh's incident, losing that front wing. I didn't see the incident, but you can, if you get the power down too hard on the curbing on the exit of turn 7, which is where Padlo Futesh was there, then that can spin you over to the left-hand side of the track. I assume that's what happened to Padlo Futesh, and probably went all the way to the left and therefore into the wall. And that's what cost the Hungarian driver their front wing, I do believe.
That is what exactly
There was about a
happened,
2.9 second gap between Padlo Futej and the cars ahead as well, so I don't think he'd have made contact with the back of Kryzix. Down into P10, and it's only going to get worse as he's going to have to come into the pits. Virtual safety car not even lasting long enough to get him to the pits in time to get that half-price pit stop as Schultes having a jam on the brakes just to avoid running into the back of the sister teammate Padlo Futej up ahead. Meanwhile, at the very front, Horpa and Josh battling. Josh getting the better run off of the virtual stop, but not able to make the move. Horpa holding on to the position. Kilachu looking interested behind. Kryzix falling back just a little bit off the end of that virtual safety car. And also Rainbow picked up a drive-through penalty for overspeed under the virtual safety car, which is a bad day getting even worse for the Mercedes.
Yeah, I know that's off the line how I talked about how his tires would be cold. He went from 11th all the way down to 15 at the start because of it. And it just looks like you said, his day is bad to worse as he had that drive-through, but he still has to make a pit stop later on. Hopefully the driver can get a safety car and get back into the mix after having such a good race in Australia last week.
Yeah, the bottom 2 drivers in the field, if we ignore Kaime, who's no longer in this race, Padlo Futej and Rainbow, that is the top 2 in our championship, currently sitting 14th and 13th respectively. Rainbow, of course, getting P2 last time out with that 18 points, and Padlo Futej taking the win as Kilachu runs a little bit wide through turn 12 and therefore picks up the first 3-second time penalty that I've seen so far this race in the Racing Point, but actually using that little track extension there to get pretty close to the back of Josh F1. It's still looking mighty close at the very front of the pack here. Josh with his tail wagging through the final corner as well. Does have DRS on Horpa up ahead, and that might just be enough to hold back the Racing Point for now, but Kilachu getting closer and closer, not close enough into turn one. Horpa keeps running wide into turn one, keeps getting away with it though, as he's found a nice way through turn two. Creo now making the move on Schultes before they even get into turn one. Can Schultes fight back? I don't think so. And Creo getting past those hard-tired drivers as he needs to on those mediums.
Yeah, he's got to get past them now before his tires do start to die off and these hards get faster. So again, I'm still curious to see how he does, as the pit window for most of these drivers is about to open. So it'll be curious to see who can come into the pits, because the undercut is really powerful around here, because as we mentioned before, the soft tires will die.
Oh no! That's Kilachu, sorry, into the back of Josh in turn 10. It's so easy with the concertina effect that you get into that especially slow corner to make contact with the rear of the driver ahead, and that's exactly what happened to the Frenchman in the Racing Point. However, Kilachu has kept all of the carbon fiber parts remaining on that front wing, and therefore only lost a little bit of time to Josh F1. Quite lucky, because there was significant contact made with the McLaren up ahead.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, he's very lucky to not have any wing damage, because that is just such an easy way to lose your wing and have your race ruined. So he is very fortunate to still be driving around track like he is right now, and hopefully he might be able to mount another challenge down the front straight. He doesn't look close enough this time to challenge Josh.
Yeah, and I want to know where this pace came from Kilachu, because even before Kilachu, I can't remember if Kilachu DNF'd last time or just finished in P13, but either way, Kilachu didn't show a lot of pace last time out in Australia relative to the rest of the field, but completely different story here as he's looking to battle for P2. Sipos, first driver, do come into the pits for a regularly scheduled pit stop. The Renault driver going on to a set of hards, looking to take himself to the very end of this race from lap 8.
Yeah, I'm looking at what happened last race, and Kilachu had a pit twice, so it looks like he took some damage. Plus, he had 15 seconds of penalty, so overall, he just did not have a great race. But you mentioned Sipos pitting. We'll see if his undercut will get him a couple positions, as even just one lap of the undercut around here should be able to do that, as Rainbow has left the session. Sorry, I think his car is like wrecked out off of turn 1. Is he missing a wing?
I can't tell if any front wing elements are missing, but Rainbow has had an incident through either turn 1 or turn 2 there, has left the session. I would suggest the fact that the car was off track does indicate that that was an intentional disconnect from the session from Rainbow rather than an internet-related thing, but we'll have to wait and see on that one. Back up towards Kilachu now. As Josh F1 under pressure, major pressure. It's not even a DRS zone, but Kilachu's making it look like one as he goes around the outside of the final corner on Josh F1. Horpa into the pits. Josh is going to head into the pits as well. Kilachu continuing on, as is Kryzix. From P4 to P2 goes the second Frenchman, and it's a French 1-2 here, with Zoran continuing in the Haas in P3. Christian Sendel on those hard tires now up into P4, with Horpa, Josh, Gromimi, and Yeltek all into the pits.
Curious to see, can Josh stay within a second on the exit, because Horpa's going to have a nice run out of the pits. But I think he'll be okay and be able to hold that DRS range. Actually, no. My Delta's saying he's about over a second to drift. So it looks like Josh not only getting held up there by Kilachu battling him, but in the pits he was a little slow, and now he's lost DRS, which could release Horpa to try to run away with this.
Yeah, Josh needs to get that DRS back as quickly as possible, because it can make so much of a difference. The fact that he's not within DRS right now means the train is broken, and Horpa will hope that that will stay broken. Josh will be pushing like mad to try and catch up with the Spaniard, currently in P8, Josh in P9. But of course, this is for de facto first and second position in this race. Kilachu and Kryzix going longer means that they will be undercut by the other drivers, but they'll be hoping for slightly fresher tires come the end of the race and to be able to make it pay then. However, Kilachu will probably lose that position that he just gained on Josh. I expect Josh must have had a moment through turn 13 on the last lap to be overtaken down that straight as easily as he was. but nevertheless, it cost him and Kilachu quite a lot of time and gave Horpa the breathing room he needed. But now it's down to 1 second between Josh and Horpa. If he can just get a better run through turn 13, looks like he has done just about. Can he get DRS for the pit straight? That could be critical as Kilachu, Cryzix, and Zoran, the last remaining soft tire runners, all head into the pits as well. Josh did manage to get DRS on Horpa. That is critical.
Now where's Kilachu going to come out in retrospect, or in reference? I'm stuttering on my own words. Wow, they came out pretty far behind Josh and Horpa. They really got undercut there, which is really going to hurt the race at the racing point as Sippy has gotten past Cryzix. What a great undercut by the Red Dragon.
Yeah, great stuff. Sipos came in before anyone else and has been able to make the 2-lap undercut pay, right, driving himself right back into contention here ahead of Cryzix, and that's de facto P4 that the Hungarian driver has now taken. Kilachu 2.3 seconds behind Josh. Could this have been the decision to stay out? The decision to go one extra lap might have thrown it all away for Kilachu, who seemed to have so much pace in the opening stint.
We'll have to see if he can relate that pace and translate it onto track without the DRS advantage, even though he's going to have two very quick drivers right behind him to fend off, where if they start battling him, I think it's looking like right now it's Horpa's and Josh's race to lose. But then again, we still can't forget these guys on the alternate strategy. Christian Sendel was not far off the back of Zoran and Graham and me before the pits. Excuse me. And so as a result, right now, he would be net about a couple seconds off of the drivers that we're talking about right now if he were to pit at this moment. And if he can keep a similar pace to these guys and put on the softs, the race is still not over.
Yeah, absolutely. The Contra strategist will be feeling pretty good about the way the race has gone so far. Josh F1, fastest lap of the race, getting closer to the back of Horpa. We thought Horpa might be able to run and hide with the breathing room he gained, but nothing of it as Zoran further down the order, getting back past Grand Mimi after Zoran was undercut by his French teammate. Back up into P11 for the time being is the Hungarian in the house, who was oh so consistent last time out. Let's not forget, the only driver, or one of two drivers in the field not to get any penalties, and the only driver not to even pick up a single corner cutting warning. Zoran is consistency personified. Not quite got the pace of the front runners in Australia and doesn't seem to have it today, but able to do battle with Gromami, who looked strong last time out.
Consistency is king. If you can just keep it clean and keep it out of getting penalties, keep away from getting damage, that's how you get free positions in racing in general. And so I wouldn't be surprised if he's able to cherry pick a couple positions today as a result.
Yeah, Sipos still just falling away a little bit from Kilachu, who's starting to close down the gap up to Horpa and Josh ahead. It's 2 seconds between Kilachu and Josh. It was 2.3, now down to 1.9, 1.8. Kilachu a lot faster in a straight line, and I think that's something we actually saw in the opening stint as well. It was Kilachu breaking the DRS train, making the moves on the cars up ahead in the middle of that train. And yeah, Kilachu, fastest lap of the race. So the Racing Point driver is not down and out quite yet. And Cryzix will be feeling the need to get past Sipos as now Josh and Horpa there side by side. And Josh has finally done it. Finally making the move past Horpa. He'd been threatening to do that so many times this race. And this time the German driver will make it work. P5 in the McLaren. Horpa, though, looking back up the inside on the exit of turn 4. They'll turn into the inside for turn 5. But nothing doing there. Josh holding the position for now, and can he make it last?
I think he's going to make it last. It looks like Horpa just doesn't have as much pace on these hard tires in comparison to what he had on the softs. He lost the rear end a little bit there. He looks like he's really struggling to just keep at the pace he was at before, and as a result, Josh was able to run him down after coming out of the pits, 1.5 seconds behind, and then you got Kilachu closing in as well. So it's going to be really interesting to see if he's actually able to get those tires to work for him, or if he's just going to start falling down the order.
And let's not forget, the 2 times we saw Horpa in the wall in Australia, he was running hard tires. Maybe the Spaniard just struggles a little bit on the harder compound. You mentioned you saw his rear end trying to kick out earlier this lap. And maybe he just has trouble getting the power laid down through those hard tires. But this of course, is giving the advantage to Kilachu behind as well. 1.4 seconds now between the Racing Point and Horpa up ahead. And Kilachu definitely the fastest guy on track for the time being. Kryzik, as I was going to say, needs to get past Sipos sooner rather than later to have a chance of mixing it up there for the podium. As Sipos just doesn't have the pace of the front four right now. Kryzik's up the inside trying to do something about it. Sipos forcing his way back around the outside though, taking the line for turn 2. Kryzik's having to give it up for now, but looking to slipstream the Renault back up towards turn 4. Up the inside he goes, can't brake late enough. Just about held onto it there. Sipos brothers holding on to P8.
Very good battle right there by the two drivers. I was curious to see if Kryzik was just setting up the inside there, possibly pull a Danny Brezne as Yeltek gets a 3-second time penalty. He's just trying to hold off the two Haas drivers, who before kind of looked like they were DRS training each other, see if they could just flip-flop paces if they were places, if they were close enough, because I noticed earlier in the race, they weren't trying to battle each other as much because they were falling down a little bit. So maybe the two drivers realizing, hey, we should probably try to use each other to claw back up, and they've clearly caught back up to Yeltek right now.
Yeah, the Haas is all over his case at the moment. Yeltek struggling just a little bit in this race so far. P5 last time out, but currently sitting down in P10, of course, looking to inherit sorry about that. Looking to inherit about 4 positions from Christian Sendel, Creo, Schultes, and Jackaljack, who will, of course, have to come into the pits before the end of this race. Kilachu almost within DRS range of Horpa now, closing down the gap consistently is the Racing Point driver, but using all of his ERS to do so as well. 0% it was very briefly on the straight there. Horpa and Josh have about 50%, while Kilachu is down well below 20 for the majority of the lap. So the Racing Point is using absolutely everything to close down this gap here.
Yeah, but I think his strategy is that if he can close down the gap and get into the 1 second, he can save ERS using DRS. So I think that might be his plan, but one thing that might put a cork in any kind of plans right now is the fact that Jackaljack is only a little over a second ahead of Josh right now, which will help Josh, give him a chance to kind of pull away from Horpa, since it will be a battle for position. So that could kind of mess around with some of these net front-running drivers right now. Kilachu's still just not close enough for DRS range.
It should help Josh, but we did see some issues with Josh in terms of straight line speed. It took him a long time to make a move on Horpa in this race, despite being very, very close behind our pole sitter for the majority of the opening stint, and we even saw Josh getting overtaken without DRS on this back straight by Kilachu just before the pit stop started. So Josh may be running a bit of a higher downforce configuration than some of the other drivers perhaps, and therefore not able to do battle quite as effectively. So Josh needs to make sure that when he gets up to Jackaljack, he doesn't make a meal of getting past the Ferrari driver, but Jackaljack doesn't really have the pace of the rest of the field here today. And that might well mean that Josh is able to think about making the move earlier rather than later, as Horpa almost considered trying to send his nose up the inside of Josh. Zoran, meanwhile, taking P10 away from Yeltek and getting the position taken before they even get to the braking zone. Yeltek struggling through turn 2 as well. Gromami falling back away from this particular battle, though.
Yeah, I guess Grom and me realized that he didn't have the pace to hold up Zoran, who's starting to come alive on those hard tires, but he's still got a ways to go to catch up to everyone else battling up ahead. And his only hope right now is can Jackaljack kind of hold up these drivers ahead, because right now, Jackaljack's going to be able to hold up Horpa and Josh and allow Kilachu, Sipos, and Kryzik right back into the picture. It'll be a 5-way battle for the net lead.
Yeah, both Josh and Horpa within DRS range now of Jackaljack. A bit of a train starting to form behind the Ferrari driver. Can Josh get past into turn 1? If he doesn't, he might well be in trouble, because Kilachu and likely Sipos will be homing in on the back of that particular train, looking to make it from a 2-car train to a 3-car train. And Jackaljack, well, we'll see what the Ferrari driver can do on the exit of the final corner here. Lock up from both himself and Josh, as Schultes and Creo are actually battling. And never mind, Jackaljack's going to do the decent thing and head into the pits, not interfere with the front battle at all. And that means that Josh doesn't have a slipstream, and Horpa is all over the back of him, but once again, not close enough until he gets to the braking zone, where he collides with the rear of the German up ahead. Josh just about holding on to the McLaren, but his tyres won't have thanked thanked him for that slide he was forced into by the investigative nose of Horpa coming in towards the backside of that McLaren. And yeah, Horpa will be very, very thanking his lucky stars that Josh didn't get sent round by that one.
Yeah, for sure. I thought there was no way that Josh that he would keep it in a straight line and keep it on track, but he was able to hold it very nicely after getting that nice little love tap on the back. Another thing I was going to point out was if the longer that Jackal Jack was going to sit there and like put a cork in the bottle, it gives it more of a chance for Christian Sendel, Soltis, and Creo up ahead to, you know, get a better chance at that overcut right now. But as of right now, look where Jackal Jack came out. He's 5 seconds behind Padlo Futes, and he was about 8 or I think it was 9 or 10 actually seconds off of our leading 3 at the moment. So those 3 are going to pit, and when they do, they're going to come out probably right around where the Haas drivers are or a little behind them. So they're going to have the work cut out for them on those fresher, softer compound.
They should be looking at least points, though. Everyone on the contra strategy, apart from maybe Jackal Jack, but Jackal Jack does have a good opportunity. Interestingly, opting to get off of those hard tires quite early and onto a set of mediums, rather than trying to take the hard tires longer and then going onto a set of softs. Of course, you would lose so much time letting the rest of the field through as they all try and battle to get past you. So Jackal Jack probably thinking that it was better to not have to go through that and therefore to go onto the mediums earlier than to wait until later, have to do all battle with all of these drivers going past and then go onto the softs, because you just lose so much time tumbling down the order.
That's for sure, and I just watched Yeltek was all over the rear end of Zoran, but he had a little bit of a wiggle out of turn 3 and it cost him getting around him. I mean, he had the overspeed, he had the DRS to make the move, but that little bit of a wiggle cost him about a couple kilometers per hour, which cost him the overtaking maneuver on that straight at the time. But interesting, it doesn't look like Zoran does have the pace anymore to close up on those guys, because he was 4 seconds adrift from Kryzak, and now it's looking like, now that there's the 5-car DRS train, that it's increased to 5. So it really is right now looking like a 5-horse battle for the lead of this race. Everyone else trying to fight for points.
It's interesting as well that the Renault of Sipos has managed to get his way into this DRS train, when it looked like actually for a while he wasn't able to keep up with Kilachu, and I assumed he wasn't going to be able to keep up with Horpa and Josh up ahead as Grom and Me picks up their first 3-second time penalty of the race. But now Sipos has actually managed to get within DRS range of the Racing Point up ahead, and Kryzak's also still within DRS range of Sipos. They're not able to get past the Renault and not really able to make it look like he had a chance of getting past the Renault anytime recently, as Horpa pretty close to the back of Josh once again. Josh with good ERS management though, same for Horpa. Kilachu still using pretty much 100% of his battery at any given opportunity. Sipos also following that particular philosophy. Kryzak somewhere in the middle, currently at about 30% in the second of the 2 McLarens. But yeah, building a gap to Zoran behind. It'll be very interesting to see what Schultes and Christian Sendel do when they do eventually come into the pitch. Just looking at chat quickly, some support for Jackal Jack and some support for Josh. I'm afraid for the Jackal Jack fans out there that the support for Josh might be yielding a little bit more happiness at the moment, as Josh currently leading the way in the de facto race and Jackal Jack struggling just a little bit down in P13. However, the Ferrari driver can still put on a charge on these medium tires, get past Padlo Footage and maybe Grom and Me ahead as well and start challenging for some points.
That's for sure. And another thing to note, Rio's tires have completely fallen off the cliff. He was within DRS range of Christian Sendel about 4 or 5 laps ago, and now he's about 4 seconds adrift over that from him, and it's looking like he's just praying now that the soft tires open up as he dives into the pit, as he's going to be the first of the top 3 drivers to put on those soft tires and see if they can get some points out of it.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Is it going to be soft tires from Creo? 10 laps to the end, you can go onto the soft, and that is exactly what the Alfa Romeo driver is going to do. So, the German has the task on their hands now to try and get back up into the points, but of course, with the huge advantage of tire grip that Creo is going to have, on those fresh, soft tires, and critically coming out ahead of Padlo Futej as well. So that's one fewer driver that Creo needs to get past. It's only Gromami up ahead that he needs to pass before he's in the points, and then he can look at trying to track down Yeltek and Zoran up ahead. A 6-second gap between Zoran and Kryzix might mean that it's a little bit too much to ask for anything higher than about P8, but we'll have to wait and see on that one just how much pace Creo will have. And Jackal Jack picking up a 3-second time penalty. That's not going to help his quest to be in the points today.
No, it definitely is not. As his race he hasn't looked too strong in all this race. He looked a lot better in Australia, but the Ferrari driver doesn't look like he's going to be able to secure any points today. He doesn't have a teammate in this race as well. His fire is currently out with what appears to be a leg injury. We are uncertain if he'll be back next week as well. So we'll keep everyone updated on that regard. In the meantime, Horpa is still over the back of Josh F1, but it looks like Josh keeps burning his ERS on the exit of corners, in particular the final corners. He just got an amazing launch off the corner. Horpa's got the DRS open. He's gaining. Is he going to make a move around the outside? He's alongside of him. Is he going to make it stick into the braking zone? And he is slightly ahead. Did they make contact there?
Yeah, they did. The front left of Josh into the rear right of Horpa, causing a little bit of a slide for the Spaniard, but he was able to collect it up and move up into P1 regardless. It is now P1, of course, because the three guys leading the way, Christian Sendel, Schultes, and Creo, have now all headed into the pits. Christian Sendel and Schultes were the last two to do that on that last lap, going from the hards to the soft tires. They both came out ahead of Creo in Ps 9 and 10, so they're going to be looking to push up in towards the middle of the points at the very least, but it's really heating up at the front as Horpa once again regaining first position from Josh after he lost it a while ago, and we thought that Josh might be able to run away at the front of the field, but Horpa having nothing of it. Now Kilachu with so much overspeed into turn 11, up the inside goes the Racing Point. Josh just about giving enough room on the apex, but Kilachu won't be able to lay down the power well enough on the inside of the exit of turn 11, and as a result, Josh holding on to P2, but only for the time being, because Sipos now as well looking really interested. Kryzix falling back, must have made a small mistake in the McLaren, and that's going to be killing him to see all this battling going on up ahead that he can't quite participate in because he made that error. Josh with a mistake into the final corner, running deep. This is going to compromise his straight line speed all the way down towards turn 1. He does have the DRS, he has the ERS, and he has the slipstream of Horpa as well, and that will be enough to keep Kilachu behind.
Yeah, Sipos goes wide in turn 1, dropped him back a little bit as Yeltek and Zorn have swapped positions. They are battling it out as Christian Sendel has dispatched Graham Mimi, and Creo just got past Schultes down the front straight. All the action's kicking off in the last 9 laps of the race right now.
Yeah, interesting that Creo got past Schultes. Meanwhile, Christian Sendel really driving up the road from these two. Schultes not really feeling it at the beginning of this soft tire stint. Not with enough pace in the AlphaTauri for the time being, but Christian Sendel getting past Gromami. Now he can start to challenge Zoran. Purple in Sector 1. The Williams is on a flyer. Let's keep an eye on what Christian Sendel can do for the rest of this race, but back up at the front, there are 5 drivers within DRS range of one another. Any one of them could win today. That will be a tall order for the likes of Sipos and Kryzix to be able to manage it, as they are just on the very edges of DRS for the majority of the time. The top 3 have just a tiny bit more pace than the guys in 4th and 5th at the moment. Of these front runners, Kilachu and Sipos both have a 3-second time penalty. Josh and Horpa both do not. So that could come critical as well.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up, and I'm glad you did, because Kilachu really, he's showing like he's got a ton of pace. He really has to get on with it and get around these 2 drivers if he wants a chance to even get a podium at this point. Because right now he's locked in at P4 as long as he can keep Sipos behind him. Christian Sendel goes fastest overall to 27.8. Those soft tires are really coming to life for him as he's already on the back of Zorn and Jeltek.
Yeah, and if he gets past them pretty sharpish, 6 seconds from Yeltek to Kryzix, it's a tall order, but if he manages to get past, say, both Zoran and Yeltek over the course of this lap, which isn't an impossible ask, then he'll have a fair few laps to try and challenge and close down the guys up ahead. About 7 laps he'll have, as he's already up the inside of Zoran through the S section. The Hungarian fighting back through turn 7, and Christian Sendel almost losing it where Padlo Futej lost it earlier this race, but holding on to the car and taking P7 away from the grasp of Zoran, who once again finds himself just ahead of his teammate Gromamy, 2 seconds behind down the road. Gromamy now has Creo and Schultes for company as well. They'll both be lining up to pass the French driver in the Haas for P9, and Gromamy might not even be looking at points here today, which is a shame when they seemed like they were one of the top 3 drivers in terms of absolute pace in Australia.
Gromamy was having a great race, and earlier on we were talking about him looking like he was looking really strong, but he's just fallen off on the second stint. He hasn't had the kind of pace that he wants. Speaking of not having the pace, Kalachu for a second there was a second adrift on the back DRS straight. He's closed the gap back up. Sipos now is 1.1 back as well. So as Christian Sendel starts to close in, once again, both Kalacho and Sipos need to get a move on it, otherwise Christian Sendel might be able to break within 3 seconds of them at the very least and steal another position from them.
Yeah, Creo, Schultes, and Gromamy all battling into turn 1. Creo and Schultes both getting past the Haas driver, but Gromamy has something to say about it. Thinking about trying to regain this P10 from Schultes, who will be so frustrated with this, because it's inevitable that Schultes will finish the race ahead of Gromamy unless the Polish driver makes some kind of critical mistake, because the difference in tire wear is so huge. But because of the battling that Gromamy just made Schultes do, Creo is just able to gap Schultes by just a little bit, get outside of DRS range for the time being, but with Zoran being a bit of a roadblock up ahead, Schultes will be able to cruise back up to the back of Creo in P9. Back up at the very front, Josh with a moment through turn 11, holds it through turn 12, though that's looking okay, but that'll give a little bit of hope to Kalachu, smelling blood in the water in the racing point, but needing to get a move on. With that penalty in the back pocket, Kalachu needs to make the move now or not at all, and into the final corner we go. Kalachu taking a lot of curb on the inside. That'll compromise his exit just a little bit relative to Josh, and you can see the McLaren's already a fair way up the road. Kalachu using all the ERS on the rest of the lap means that he doesn't have any remaining for this one, but now Josh all over the back of Horpa, who's struggling towards the end of the straight. Josh around the outside, Horpa trying to hold on. They're going to bang wheels, and Josh forces around the outside. Horpa has to give room to the McLaren driver, tries to get on the power to fight back, but almost spins out, and that will give the opportunity to Kalachu up the inside into turn 4. So late on the brakes, late enough to try and take the position away, but well over to the inside now. Will give Horpa the opportunity to fight back in turn 5, 6, and 7. Kalachu's gone flying off the road, and it's all gone wrong for the Frenchman, who saw the opportunity for P2 and maybe even P1, but it wasn't to be.
Yeah, so unfortunate. He looked like he could capitalize off of Horpa's loss of the rear end there. What that's done is that's freed up Josh and Horpa away from Sipos, as now it's going to be a 2-horse race for the lead, as Sipos had to let off the gas there to avoid hitting Kalachu due to the ghosting system. He didn't, but at the same time now, it is now a 2-horse battle with our top 2 horses having better ERS management than the 2 drivers behind them.
Yeah, but Josh is gapping Horpa as well. Let's not ignore that fact. Horpa having to do battle, of course, with Kalachu through turns 5 and 6 last time out, that ended up with the Racing Point driver going flying off the road, meaning that it's now 9/10 of a second between Josh and Horpa. So Horpa has a bit of a minor mountain, a very minor mountain to climb, as he's already closing down to about half a second with the DRS advantage still on the back of the German in the McLaren, who can't start counting his chickens quite yet, as Creo making it past Yeltek for P7. The soft tire runners are on a charge. Christian Sendel now within 3 seconds of Kryzik, who's going side by side with Sipos into turn 4. This battling will cost them even more time, as Kryzik makes the move up into P3, and that means that Christian Sendel's well within 3 seconds of Sipos now, who has a 3-second time penalty. So Christian Sendel's in position to inherit at least P4 in this race. Kryzik, Horpa, and Josh all sitting on 0 time penalties for the time being, but Kryzik does have 2 warnings, and with Christian Sendel only 2.5 seconds behind the McLaren, Kryzik is going to have to start looking in his mirrors, not for Sipos, but for Christian Sendel.
Here's another crazy fact for you. Our top 4 drivers all did not score points last week, and on top of that, our top 2 drivers did not finish the race. So it's looking like a great day for the split, and to see some nice diversities. It's really showing that we don't have 1 or 2 dominant drivers in the split, but rather we have a very deep field, and these drivers have come to play today.
Absolutely, and with Padlo Futosh having such an off-color weekend as well down in P12, we're going to see whoever wins this race will be even on points with our current championship leader. I'm not even sure who's going to go away from here leading in the championship. It might even be Schultes, depending on how many positions the Polish driver can make up in the AlphaTauri, as Sipos and Kryzik's almost thinking about going side by side into turn one. Schultes getting back past Creo. That's exactly what he needs if he wants to be trying to stake a claim at the very top of the standings. Christian Sendel in P5, now 1 second behind Sipos and Kryzik's, almost within DRS range. He doesn't need to overtake Sipos, but he does need to overtake the Frenchman ahead. Kryzik's in that McLaren doesn't have a 3-second time penalty, so Christian Sendel will do everything in his power to get past both of these guys, because Christian Sendel will still, even now, be thinking about the win with 4 laps left to go. It's not impossible if he manages to dispatch these guys quickly, but his soft tires are going to be starting to hurt just about now. He's going to be losing some of the pace advantage he has over the coming couple of laps. Meanwhile, back up at the very front, it's Josh, half a second back to Horpa, who needs to get as close behind the German through the final corner as he can to try and make a move into turn 1. Josh running wide through turn 13. Sipos with yet another 3-second time penalty. That's going to drop him well out of contention now. So unfortunate there for the Hungarian, who's had a lot of pace here today, but still all over the back of Sipos, and Horpa all over the back of Josh.
Christian Sendel's looking like he's winding up a double overtake down the straight. He has the ERS, and he now has the DRS advantage. Looks like he's gonna get Sipos as they cross the line, and then he's gonna get Kryzik's at the same time. That's a podium position for the Williams driver.
Huge move there from Christian Sendel. Horpa, meanwhile, up ahead, got so close to the back of Josh, but not close enough to make the move. Creo and Schultes battling once again, and they're flip-flopping back and forth, and that's harming their ability to catch up to the likes of Kilachu, Kryzik's, and Sipos up ahead as well. Christian Sendel losing out to Sipos. I did not expect to see that happening. Maybe the soft tire is starting to fall away just a little bit now for Christian Sendel, and Sipos in the Renault able to fight back, even though he has that 6-second time penalty. So all he's doing is preventing Christian Sendel from getting up there towards the very front. But of course, he's perfectly within his right to do that. That is what everyone should be doing, racing until the end, regardless of your penalties. But Josh, 6 tenths to Horpa, 2.6 down to Sipos, and Christian Sendel only a couple of tenths behind the Renault, will surely be getting past towards the end of this lap, but time is running out for Christian to look for anything better than P3, but P3, from where he started on the grid, is no mean feat. So great drive from the German in the Williams today, but a different German leading the way. Josh, what can he do through the final corner here? He needs to keep it smooth. He needs to keep it clean. Horpa doing the exact same behind as well, but that did look nice on the exit for Josh. Will Horpa have enough about him to close down this 3.5 tenth gap down towards turn 1? Josh already thinking about going defensive, elects for the outside line. Horpa's not close enough. Behind them, Christian Sendel getting cleanly past the Renault this time around. Kryzik's might be thinking about a move on Sipos as well, but he's not close enough.
Yeah, beautiful move there by Christian Sendel, nice and clean down the straight, and held it under braking. He was able to get a good enough exit out of turn 1 to keep Sipos behind, which is exactly why Sipos got past him last lap, because Christian Sendel went deep, lost the rear end a little bit, and Sipos was all over him through 2 and 3, and was able to use the DRS and whatever ERS he had left to make the move down the inside in turn 4.
So Josh has 1 warning. Horpa has at least 2, actually. I'm seeing 3 in his thing, but I can only assume that one of those is a contact warning, because obviously he hasn't picked up a 3-second time penalty yet. Same story for Christian Sendel as well. What can he do? Can he get close enough to start challenging for the win? That would be an incredible feat for the Williams driver, but it just looks like now the soft tires are starting to run out of their pace. He's losing the advantage he had over the rest of the field, as you can see by the fact that Sipos and Kryzik's are sticking within DRS range of him up ahead as well.
I think Sipos staying ahead of him the last lap has cost Christian the chance to win the race, because he was looking like he was gaining at miles and miles faster than everyone else. But because he got stuck behind the Renault for 1 lap, he's not going to be able to close it up. Plus, he used a lot more of his tires than he wanted to.
Horpa not close enough this lap, but Schultes and Creo, the two other guys on the soft tyres, battling it out for P7. Both of them not really close enough to the back to Kalachu to think about making a move. This time it's Schultes who'll claim the position away. Kryzix is very, very close behind Sepos, who's had a moment through turn 2 by the looks of things. Sepos having to go defensive into turn 4, will hold the position, though Kryzix can't quite get the power laid down well enough on the exit and stuck behind Sepos for the time being. But of course, with Sepos having 6 seconds of time penalties, Kryzix is going to inherit that P4 at the very least. Kalachu, let's not forget, also has a warning here. So Schultes and Creo can think about trying to inherit that position. Schultes with 0 warnings, but Creo does have 1.
Yeah, one thing to also watch, if Schultes can get within that 3-second range, he'll get Kalachu and Sipos as well. And that would give another 2 free positions for him, which would ultimately make him our championship leader, I believe, as he already has 15 points to his name, and putting him to P5 would get him, actually no, it would put him on level with Pablo Futes. I apologize, but that's not correct there.
Yeah, it'll be so close. P5 won't be quite enough, but he'll be second in the championship. Or, well, actually, no, he'll be third, because whoever wins this race will be on 25 as well. And it's going to be Josh up across the line, weaving across the line. The McLaren driver had just enough about him to see off the challenge from Horpa, who started from pole. Christian Sendel, what a drive from him to manage his way up to P3, starting outside the top 10 on the grid, making the contra strategy work perfectly. Kryzix will claim P4. Kalachu just about holds on to get P5 away from Schultes. Sipos falling all the way down to P7 as a result of his penalties. Zoran, with his consistency, will manage P8. Creo losing positions at the end due to penalties as well, down to P9. And Grand Mimi, on the very edge of the points, will claim P10.
I believe Grand Mimi got gifted some points there because Yeltek spun out of the last corner, which is never what you want to do on the last lap, as Jackal Jack sets the fastest lap of the race on the last lap as he pitted for softs to steal that lap away. Won't get any points for it, but you know, it's better than nothing, right?
Absolutely. Definitely better than nothing. Driver of the day, Christian Sendel. I mean, I think you'd be hard put to disagree with that. The contra strategy is powerful around here, and sometimes it can be an advantage compared to starting in the bottom half of the top 10 to start outside the top 10, but Christian Sendel did it so much better than the likes of Schultes and Creo as well. So I really think the Williams driver is well deserving of driver of the day here today, of course. Both of the two that fought for the win, Horpa and Josh, also put on a great showing here today. Horpa slightly less so, only if nothing else because he finished P2 when Josh finished P1. But both of them were well deserving of the points they've earned today. Josh putting himself joint first in the standings now with Pablo Futej and with Schultes on the same amount of points, but without a win to his name. Oh no, in fact, he's going to have 2 fewer points. So Schultes will be in P3 in the championship, I do believe.
Yeah, he ended up in P6, was not able to get Kalachu at the end there. But still, a pretty good drive for everyone who was on the counter strategy today. I mean, you're looking at Christian Sendel from 12th to 3rd, Schultes 14th to 6th, and Creo 13th to 9th. Those are some very good applications of that reverse strategy there today. Of course, Rainbow had the moment early on and lost it out after A, not having warm tires for the start of the race, and B, spinning off, and then Jackal Jack as well wasn't able to make it work. But yeah, you're right. Christian Sendel, definitely driver of the day, and Josh and Horpa, definitely the other 2 best drivers on the grid today that we saw.
Yeah, Kryzix, of course, getting stuck behind Sepos after the pit stops meant that that particular Frenchman wasn't able to keep battling up at the front. We saw Kalachu losing it in the battle with Horpa as well. I wonder if we're going to see any investigations of that. It looked all clean and fair to me, and that Kalachu just lost it. I think there probably was contact, but it was definitely a racing incident, I would suggest. But a lot of pace shown here today from a lot of drivers, and not the same drivers that we saw showing the pace in Australia necessarily either. Only Horpa was the constant, really, between Australia and today. And of course, he ended up DNFing in Australia regardless of his pace. So it's going to be fascinating to see how this championship evolves. After only 2 rounds, it's looking excellent.
Yeah, indeed it is. I mean, Horpa, you know, it's this question of what ifs. If, you know, if he was able to actually not spin off last race and finish it, you know, he was well and truly on his way to leading the championship in his first season. But you know, he was able to make those hard tires work for him today. And even though he wasn't able to keep Josh behind, which amazing drive by Josh, um, you know, it's all up in the air for everyone. And also with Josh from going last race where he DNF'd early on in the race to, well, it was middle of the race, but still from DNFing to being able to come back and win a race. What a drive.
What a drive indeed. But yeah, thank you guys very much for joining us here for Apex Online Racing Season 20 F2 Round 2 here for the Bahrain Grand Prix, and it has absolutely shaken up the championship here today. And I think that's all from me. Is there anything else you want to say before we go, Fizzy?
I do not got anything else to say. Thank you for everyone who watched today, and I hope you all enjoyed the entertainment that we provided you today through AOR. As thank you very much to Hype Energy for sponsoring us, as well as today clearly shows that AOR is still well and truly one of the best racing leagues out there with how that racing was today.
Absolutely. So thank you guys very much for watching, and good night.